Well, what I find amazing, with the time differences, was poor David trying to prove his innocence and denying the Colenso affair. But some years later, I always remember when the Van Meer was taken, there was people coming out of the woodwork holding up that they all took it. So I don't know really how things changed so quickly. One person trying to fight lies and the other people lying and wanting to go into prison. Really quite silly.
Yeah, and what about all the mad stories and people claiming that, just tell us a bit more about that. Things that were in the news at the time and finding the frame on Hampstead Heath.
Oh yeah, what was also amazing, that people actually were making statements in the Sunday papers saying that they had it and frames were being found here and it was going out to help people fight for their country and all this and that. It's quite amazing. But seeing what poor David went through when no one had even heard of the Colenso diamond. I'm not so sure it was there now, come to think of it.
Okay, so that's good. I'm just trying to work our way around it because I know you don't want to sort of implicate anything. So if you say sort of like about finding out about the medium the police use to find it, and because that's amazing that now it just seems ludicrous, doesn't it, that the police to actually say, right, we've got a medium on this, and they found the painting. I mean, obviously saved them a lot of paperwork and all that stuff, but it was like that was actually the official.
Yeah, I mean now they've got DNA tests and everything, and they use the bloody clairvoyant.
I know. Talking about that picture, I found it amazing that someone went into a trance and the famous painting was left somewhere where police officers knew where to get it. I wish they'd do that about my earrings I lost the other night because it's driving me mad.
That's great. Thank you.
See, what you've got to realise as well, I've got to be fair to Kevin.
I think it's pretty clear that maybe we could go over like the so it's like the straw that broke the camel's back was, and the story of the clairvoyant, the fortune teller is brilliant. If you could put that into it, it'd be
I'll say she didn't see that coming, did she? Well, I think at the end of the day, we were many years together and we went through a lot of upset. But when I found out he had another woman, I felt then that it was time to call it a day. And it was a bit unfortunate for him, really, because when I caught him, I gave him the best right-hander anyone's ever had. And I think the lady concerned hit him in the back of the head with a plate or something. But the thing is, she didn't see that, did she? We found the painting.
And I don't know. I wonder if there's just any sort of nice story, or amusing stories like capers he got up to.
Yeah, what was the cab? You said they had a cab or something.
Yeah, anything. I mean, David always told me this funny story. I always thought it was like kind of a brilliant. Was like they used to put a board up over a night safe saying. Not working. Please use the letterbox to the bank, and so people that were coming along to the night safe, they would then chuck it into.
I didn't know about that.
No, you didn't know about that one.
I didn't know about that. I do know when they had the cab, which was highly funny, really. Bernard picked him up one day, and we had a woman living down our street, massive. She used to sell the chickens down North End Road. And as David was getting in the back, she got in the door the other side and she went, quick, Charing Cross Hospital. I remember that. And I had to take her to the hospital. She ran in without even paying, but they could charge her anyway. I think really towards the end, he was doing things that, with people that I never really got. I mean, if they had a wife, I probably went out socially with them. But 9 times out of 10, he wasn't even coming home towards the end. I don't think it was just her anyway. I mean, I can remember when he was up on trial for the Colenso Diamond, Beanie turned up with a girl, a young girl, and we all knew she wasn't with him. So also, I remember he told me not to go up on a visit one day to Brixton. And he was in there with a guy called Fatty Allen and that lot. And when I went, the day he told me not to go, I went the following day. And Fatty's 2 sisters were there. And they said, we didn't see you yesterday, but his sister was lovely, wasn't she? And it turned out to be another woman. It wasn't your mother, you know. So, you know, really and truthfully, things were... I just probably didn't want to face it, but I knew in the end, you can't have people knocking on your door, can you? Not when they're a bit bigger than you anyway, you know what I mean? But no, seriously. So the days then, but they did all meet, well, as I say, even the fortune teller had been to Sandy's. So how long was it going on with her? And that's how much she knew. She knew more than me.
Yeah.
When they were a gang. I only really knew David when he was a loner, except for Jimmy Evans, who was my best man when we got married. Jesus Christ. So with her, it was a different kettle of fish, because none of them had any wives, only Bernard. The rest were all single, but that was it.
How did Jimmy Evans end up your best man? I never realised that.
Yeah. Well, we never told anyone, did we? We were getting married, so Jimmy Evans was our best man. Pity for him, Jimmy, that David was knocking it off with him when he was marching on with a 7 stretch for manslaughter, you know. But see, you could cause so much trouble, Carol. He knocked on my door when he came out of prison after 7 years, and he said, I can't believe it, Carol, you're not with David. If you was to tell me where he lives, I could get you 2 back together again. But he knew, I knew his wife, to turn him on when he came out of prison. She used to tell him who he went with. I said, I don't know where he lives, Jim. I mean, when David found out, he said, you're such a good friend. I said, I am. You'd have been on a mortuary slab if Jim could walk round. I was going to tell him to kick off round Kinnell, but I thought I better keep my mouth shut, eh? So he was very lucky, David, because Jim said, you don't understand. He will go back with you if only I could see him. I thought, yeah, I know what you're going to see him for. I don't know.
I'm trying to think of it.
I'm trying to think who else could help you. Did you get in touch with Bernard?
I sent him a letter and he didn't reply.
What makes me laugh is my mother-in-law gets a card off of him every year. I get that. She gets a card and we get that.
Because you gave me his address.
I did. He's up the hill, isn't he? At Box Hill, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
With the old Diddy coys. He was working for him, I think, up there.
Because he became a builder, didn't he?
Yeah, Kevin. Oh, that was funny. Kevin went to work with him, and they were working for this florist bird over in Chelsea, and there was something wrong with her attic. Anyway, he left. They left that night. He said, see you tomorrow. Well, she went up there and shut the door and was locked in, so she wrapped herself up with that material, because when they got back there the next morning, she was covered in spots and that. she couldn't get out. But the funniest was he went and put a bidet in round in Queen's Club, and he left the bird a note: "Do not use this, as we got no cold water." Anyway, the note went missing. She sat on it, thinking it was going to be cold, burnt herself to buggery, and he was never allowed round Queen's Club anymore. But a lot of this really, as I say, I've probably said more than I should do. I've got a feel for Kevin. You do understand that. He's a good man.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, you know, and I mean, but I would say Sandy would give you a wealth of information. A wealth of information.
So can you remember Sandy's second name?
No, but I know who will. I'll get in touch with Carol Wright.
Would you? Yeah, I mean, because Carol Wright was a really good friend, but she was married to Brian.
Well, they were never married, her and Bloomfield,
Right, well,
but she had 2 kids. The boy died, you know.
Yeah.
The eldest boy died, and I felt so bad because we had to have an autopsy on him. And he had picked the body out in the mortuary, but of course he had to go to court, the coroner's court, and in the meantime he's ended up in prison again, and they brought him out in his prison clothes. This was at Westminster. I had a right row with the guards. They were taking the piss out of him. I said, "You're a disgrace. He's getting there giving evidence against his son. Couldn't you let him put a suit on?" Everyone was looking at him. Because Paul was a lost soul, you know, and, oh, Carol, yeah, she lives in Hastings now. Her boyfriend proposed to her at Christmas on one knee with a diamond engagement ring. And my Matthew said, "That's number 10, isn't it?" I said, "Well, probably 10 rings, love, but I don't know about 10 marriages." But Carol, you know, she see, it became a bit of a thing that the wives of the villains, when I broke up, would have nothing to do with Sandy. They were on with me. And I think David said to them, you know, you're not getting friendly with her because it's taking the piss out of Carol, who you've been friends with all these years. So, you know, there was nothing really. I mean, I was heartbroken. I was ill for quite a long time over it because it was quite a hectic life. It wasn't just the fact that it was another woman, it's what you'd done for them and that, because I'm selfish, I would think of that. No, it wasn't, I was just dreadfully. It was the only boyfriend I ever had, so it was very hard for me, but oh, she would know, because he said, "Kaz, I'm using her for her lock-up," and she went, "Wallop!" I went, "Well done." Mind you, we should be writing a comedy bleating series. I don't know about anything.
Well,
I could
some of the one-liners are great. Certainly are.
So we're trying to get hold of Sandy. Would you mind giving us, or would you ask Carol Wright?
If I can get her last name and her area, you'd have no trouble, because I traced someone the other day in Brixton on not on my computer, Kevin, whose address I wanted. I will ring Carol Wright tonight, right? And yeah, all right, yeah, Carol, yeah. She's still a piss artist, you know, yeah, she's as good as gold.
Well, the last time I saw her was at David's funeral.
Yeah.
Would have been.
Because I ended up in hospital after that. Did you know that? For 5 weeks after David's funeral.
No, what was that?
Well, I don't know why I have these things happening to me. I was sick at David's funeral and everyone thought it was grief, but I couldn't stop being sick. And by the Friday, my leg had come up. On the Saturday morning, I got a cab to Charing Cross Hospital. I never see the light of day. They were going to amputate my leg. I had cellulitis. Supposed to be a bleeding diabetic disease. I'm not a diabetic. But I was in there for ages. I had a district nursing for 5 months. And they all thought it was because of David. Well, he might have done. I bet he sod her. Yeah, my poor leg. And she ain't getting that over, is she? It was terrible. They drew this red line.
You know, just say if they're okay for us to ring them, I'll give her a ring. I'll get you know, but check that.
Yeah, I'll ring Carol, and I think Sandy will help you out a lot because she's dopey enough to give you all the business.
Yeah.
She came from Peterborough. That's where they were going. I think that's where she went back, Peterborough, because. Did you ever go to see him?
I went to see him at St Bernard's. Yeah.
St Bernard's, yes. And
Should we start with what St Bernard's was and then talk, so we all know?
Yeah. So probably if you say, I guess what year was that? I'm trying to think. I was 14, so it must have been around about 84.
was it as late as that? I was with David, I was with Kevin, because
Yeah.
my son was born in 82. But of course I wouldn't take him there. I took him to the prison, but I wasn't going to take him, because we used to visit him when he was on remand in Pentonville, and
In St Bernard's, and then we can go on to,
yeah.
and you can just say why he was in St Bernard's, really.
And make sure we know what St Bernard's is, that's the only thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah. So St Bernard's is a mental secure unit, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then maybe there's a, I mean, did you ever think it was because he wrote all the letters that they didn't like that and that was an
Well,
excuse
they
for
called
him?
me out of work. I had to go to, this was ages afterwards. He'd been nicked for writing the letters. And I got a phone call one morning from Scotland Yard. I was in my office and they said to me, "Oh, Mrs O'Rourke," I said, "divorced." They said, "Could you come to Scotland Yard?" I said, "No." They said, "Well, put it this way, we'll be coming into Hammersmith Town Hall then." I said, "All right, I'll see you." So I went up there and they said, "He's not a bad boy, David." He said, "But don't forget, he also done Bush when he was in the country to the Americans. The Americans put their foot down. I don't think, because they told me that with Maggie Thatcher, they employ someone all day putting her letters through. But it's when he done Terry Wogan, Frank Sinatra, what's he do? Poor Frank to him." But it was the American. Bush was over here, and they've had how many presidents assassinated? Quite a few. So he said it wasn't nothing to do, it was the Americans really that were frightened of his letters. And he said, so I said, "Well, why am I here?" He said, he's give us our keys for you to go and feed these little animals. I said, "Are you for real?" I said, "What's up with you?" I said, "Give them to his mother." Cheek. Wanted me to go and feed these, what's the little things with no tails? Guinea pigs, or what, hamsters, or whatever.
Yeah.
He said he would like you to go and feed them. I said, "What are you?" I said, "Give the keys to his mother." He walked out. I said, "You called me out of work for this?" But he did say to me it was the Yanks who got the wind up over him. He didn't like it, David, when he said, "I wrote to so-and-so, signed myself the Amiga." I said, "That's a wind-up, isn't it?" I don't know if he got the junk or not. But he used to put his name and address on them. You can't write threatening letters and put your name and address on them. Barbara Streisand, there was another one. Don't know what she'd done, the poor old, but still. Yeah, so he definitely had lost it by then. He had lost it. And I mean, I did feel dreadfully sorry for him. What could you do though? You couldn't do anything because he'd gone beyond help, I think, you know, by then. You got to remember when he was in prison, they were injecting him with Ligatril. Well, I think they tried to do it in the nut, but he knew what Ligatril was. It's like knocks your sparko, doesn't it? Like, I think it does, Ligatril. It's not a thing that I really knew. When he was put in St Bernard's, everyone felt so sorry for him because it had come to that. Dapper Dave was now in St Bernard's. I went up there on 2 or 3 occasions to see him, and I can only say I felt so terribly, terribly sorry for him because he had become far worse than I'd ever seen him since the Colenso Diamond. So, what can you say? I don't know. He certainly wasn't the David when you look back upon our younger days together. So that was the end of it all.
So he was sort of sectioned in think Mike Wafty's saying, so he was sectioned in 84, I think, and he was sectioned and sent to St Bernard's.
Well, he was very lucky in a sense, because I went into work one morning and my boss Mike was nearly blind, so he used to listen to the radio a lot, and he said to me, "Did you see what Dave?" Because all my friends knew him, all my bosses and that. We used to go out. So he said, "Did you hear what David got last night on the radio?" I said, "No." He said he got life for the criminally insane. But when I spoke to the doctor, Irishman he was, the psychiatrist, they were going to put him in where Hindley's boyfriend was, up in Manchester, the Nut House. What was it called? It was a very strong...
Brampton.
And they were going to put him up there. Whereas I thought that St Bernard's was more of a softer place. And then when he came out, he was just getting to be an old man, which he wasn't really in years entitled to be. It finished him. So,
Would he often, you know, because I don't doubt that he was sick, you know.
oh, he was without a shadow. He was without a shadow. I mean, I always thought he was, when he came out towards the end, he was such a liar, a bloody good one as well, you know. But the thing was, he was never the same. You were never going to be the same. He'd done a lot of his prison sentence in solitary. For a man who had been out and had a good social life before all this happened, they used to call him Dapper Dave, suited and booted, you know. When he come back out, it wasn't the same, was it? He was a changed man. But towards the end, he was very, very sick, I felt. Not just physically, but mentally as well, which he was. I mean, you wouldn't, I mean, Terry Wogan, I know he's gone now, but seriously, better cut that bit out. He's only been gone 3 days, isn't he? 4 days. I mean, Terry Wogan, he was in his back garden.
Was he?
Yeah, probably shouting abuse. Now, you can't be saying that. You can't. Really, if it was Cameron, well, you could be, I suppose, but he's so dim and you wouldn't even know what you were saying to him. But yeah, he told me, apparently he had a house that was down by the river and he was in his garden. Barbara Streisand. Frankie, really, I mean, he used to write, but as I will tell you, he really got the order over the Yank. Because how many had they lost presidents? So, you know, that's what really... Maggie, in fact, there were so many letters to Maggie, I don't think they even bothered to open them. It wasn't Maggie Thatcher at all. I know he used to write Dear Syphilitic Whore, didn't he, as an opening line. So, I mean, you know, but it wasn't through that at all. He told me, he said, all day long, people put letters threatening Maggie Thatcher through a shredder. But Bush wasn't having it, the Yanks. Well, that's stupid anyway, but I mean... But what entailed him to do this? I mean, Terry Wogan, what has he done? I mean, I can understand Maggie and I can understand Bush. But I mean, Terry Wogan and that, why did it... how strange was his mind to be fixed on these people? And from different ways of life, you know? And he can't say it was jealousy with Terry Wogan. It might have been with Frank, but, you know, why Terry Wogan, I wonder? I really found that quite strange. I found that the maddest part, Terry Wogan.
Yeah, it's quite strange.
I think that's clearly what was so kind of crazy about it, that there was, you know, there'd be a kind of logic and then there would be a sideways swipe where you'd go, what What have they got to do?
Yeah, well, when I went in to see him, and I took my friend Jane with me up to see David, and of course you were only 14, it wouldn't have mattered to you, but they search you and they leave your fags, but you have to get a light off the warders, and it was mixed. It was a mixed room, a playground, and I noticed that one of the doors was ajar and there was a mattress on the floor, so we ain't got to make out our mind what that was doing. And this little girl come along, she looked like, I don't know if you ever watch NCIS Los Angeles, but the woman who's in charge is very tiny. She won an Oscar for doing a film on Vietnam. Can't think of her name. He was, but where the big Hanwell thing is, I used to go there to visit two people who've been in there for years with epilepsy. But that's what they'd done, didn't they, in the war? They just slung you in. And she used to walk round with him, and she took him one day to a grating in the ground. And on a Sunday, people used to get dressed up in their best gear, and they used to usher the lunatics underneath the grating, and they would throw coins at them. So if they thought he was mad, they was as sick as the people who were in the ground. So he was walking the dog out, so he wasn't completely losing it, trusted to take the dog out. But the last time I saw him before he went into hospital, it was lovely in a sense that my husband and my son took me over to see him early in the morning. And he was very ill then with the cancer. And because his birthday and my mother's was the same, so we couldn't get an answer from his phone. And I said, well, if he's got a night nurse, perhaps we'd be able to get in. It was quite early because the boys were going to work. And the three of us went up, and I was totally shocked. This old man was in a wheelchair looking out the window. And I went in singing happy birthday. And I was absolutely shocked that he went like that in such a short time. There was no smile on his face, nothing. And it was his birthday. I remember that. I never saw him again after that until hospital. I spoke to him a lot, but he didn't get out anymore. He was very sick then. And I thought, Dapper Dave, where has it all gone? It was like it never happened, you know? And that's how he ended up. Didn't deserve that. Because without a shadow of the doubt, prison definitely done his brain in. And for something, it kicked off with something he didn't do. It was a big price to pay. He'd have only probably got 6 months for the lamps anyway, if it came to it, which he held his hands up to. But I still got her impressed. I've never heard of the bloody Colenso diamond. Good night.
It's really nice.
I took the Colenso diamond, I know. And I think Beanie said something. He didn't only say the lamps, because they are dramatic. Look, I've got nothing against them. My best friend's homosexual. In fact, a lot of people down North End think we're married. That's because he carries my shopping at Gentleman. Ian, he's lovely, isn't he?
Oh yeah, man, yeah.
He's a lovely, lovely man. And he knew David. But I think Beanie they do gild the lily a lot, some of them. They do exaggerate things, and I think he said, and you want to ask him about the diamond collections in the science, was it the history? Yeah. The History Museum. But why was it in the History Museum when most of the diamonds are in the Science Museum? Because they're rare stones.
It's a geology department in the Natural History.
Yeah, well, it must have been done about history because I thought a lot of the diamonds were kept in the Science Museum.
Yeah, they might be.
They had unusual diamonds in there, like all different colours, which was unusual. So what the Colenso diamond was, I swear to you, what made it bad for Arthur as well was his son worked in the museums, didn't he?
Really, I didn't know that.
It finished up. What we should put in there really was as well, this didn't only hurt David, had repercussions on his stepfather who lived in the Victoria and Albert Museum and was chief warder. Can you imagine?
Okay.
I would like to add as well that it wasn't only David who lost out as long as his family, but his stepfather at the time had a very high position in the Victoria and Albert Museums, and he had a lot of men who he was in charge of, and when this whole tissue of lies happened, he started to age very quickly because he knew what people were saying about him in his line of work. So more than one person suffered over all this.
Did Arthur ever think he might have done it?
Well, I don't think Arthur did, because if that was the case, he wouldn't allow his wife to go missing on long journeys to see him. Why would he bother with the boy, or man as he was? I'm quite sure if Arthur held him responsible for that, I wouldn't think he would open the front door to David again. Where his job was concerned, it was a high-profile job to become, which he had a good war record and things like that, his stepfather, and it was a good position to have. So you can imagine how it badly affected him. A proud man.
MBE, I think, wasn't it?
MBE in the BEM he had. OBE in the BEM. That's what his decorations were. And I know David would not have done it to him. This is the point, because David idolised his mother. He was not going to put her marriage and her home under any strain because of him. No, I certainly think people should look at this in a different light where his family were concerned. Because Arthur was never the same man, nor was his mother after it. He retired quite early. Because the talk must have been horrendous at the museums. But I know David would not have put him in that position. I do know that.
And Arthur would have had some sort of relationship with the police anyway, wouldn't
Oh
he?
yes, well, he lived in the museum. Very upright man, very military. I could think that his men had a field day. Whether they respected him or not, people talk. It's cheap. Livens the day up. So it really did affect an awful lot of people.
What was did the family have any view about the police officers that, lied? Was that common knowledge, or did they suspect that?
Well, his mother, of course, knew they lied. But Arthur didn't comment at the time because, in a sense, he was half a policeman himself, wasn't he? Because he controlled everything in the Victoria and Albert. We lived in the Victoria and Albert at the back.
Yeah. We went to see it in the museum.
Yeah.
So David wouldn't have done that to Arthur.
But Arthur would have often had something to do with the police anyway.
Well, of course, when the alarms went off, which in those days, if you were asleep at night, and of course it ran right by the Brompton Oratory, and the alarm systems in those days weren't very sophisticated, so every time a leaf fell off the tree, It went through to the police stations. So Arthur would have been in contact with police officers.
And do you think he knew that there was that some of them were bent, or?
I wouldn't have known. He probably only got used to the uniform police when the alarms went off. And they had security on each gate. So it was very like the army in many sense.
I'm trying to think if there's any, because we've got year codes. Just trying to think if there's any other stuff that we can ask you about, or maybe.
Well, I'm thinking, let me get you.
And
Yeah,
stuff like
see.
that might be a
Well, with World in Action, we used to go out possibly and see them and have a meal with them while they were getting the show together. David saw them more than I, because he would go up there in the day and discuss it with them. So they were all very, very nice people. So yeah, I can't really say much more about them. They were just very, very interested in everything, very good at their jobs.
And were they all public school boys, or?
No, I don't think Ernie Eban was. I think he was just, because he was a photographer, so he was. He did say something one day about me. Let's do that with when I stand in bail. But even then, David got arrested on something, and I went up to bail him out. And the court at Marylebone, I can't remember what it was, and the court at Marylebone was very busy that day, because it was the first big trial of the lump, was when they were all, did you know what the lump was? It was a massive thing about building workers not paying income tax. And it was it was a big firm of it doing it, right. And it was packed in there. And I went up to stand bail, and I had to go into the dock. He was a lovely, what was his name, this judge? He was the magistrate of London. He was a lovely man. And the court was packed, and they said,